Hi, this is NextGen Picks. Look, walk into any Best Buy or scroll through Amazon right now and you're going to see the same thing. AI-powered contrast, 10,000 nits of peak brilliance, and the smartest TV ever made. It's all a lie. Well, mostly. In 2026, the marketing machine has gone into overdrive because the tech has actually hit a wall. They're trying to sell you tandem OLEDs that dim after 6 months and RGB mini LEDs that bloom so hard your movies look like they're underwater. I've spent the last 3 months in my lab testing every 65-inch flagship and budget hero on the market. And I've found something disturbing. Most of these TVs are designed to die the day your warranty expires. But there is one, just one, that actually breaks the mold. Before we dive into the data that the big brands don't want you to see, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. We don't take brand deals. We don't take free review units that are handpicked by factory engineers. And we definitely don't sugarcoat the truth. Your support is the only reason we can keep the testing independent and your wallet protected. Ready? Let's look at the real numbers. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why is every 65-inch TV in 2026 suddenly claiming to be revolutionary? I'll tell you why. Because the manufacturers are terrified. We've reached a point where the physical glass on these screens can't get much better without becoming ridiculously expensive. So what do? They hide the cheap hardware under a layer of AI processing. They're using software to sharpen images that shouldn't be sharp and to boost colors until your skin tones look like a radioactive orange. The 65-inch segment is the absolute sweet spot for the US market. It's what fits in most living rooms. It's the high-volume seller. And because it's the volume seller, it's where the brands are cutting the most corners. They know if they shave $5 off the cooling assembly on 1 million units, that's $5 million in profit. But for you, that means a panel that starts to yellow or develop vertical banding just as you finish the final payment on your financing plan. Which brings us to our first contender, and arguably the most controversial TV of 2026, the Sony Bravia 82. Sony is playing a very dangerous game this year. They've moved away from their traditional OLED stance and fully embraced the QD OLED tech for this mid-premium tier. Now, if you listen to Sony's marketing, this is the director's choice. They talk about the cognitive processor XR like it's a living, breathing brain. And look, I'll be honest with you, Sony's upscaling is still the gold standard. If you're like me and you still watch a lot of live sports on YouTube TV or cable content that isn't native 4K, the Bravia 82 makes it look incredible. It cleans up the noise and the compression artifacts better than anything LG or Samsung has put out this year. It's the difference between a blurry mess and a crisp, clean image. But, and this is a massive but, Sony is charging you a loyalty tax. In 2026, for a TV that costs north of $2,000, having only 2 HDMI 2.1 ports is frankly insulting. It's a truth bomb Sony doesn't want you to think about until you get the TV home. If you have a PS6, an Xbox Series X, and a high-end soundbar, you're already out of ports. You're going to be swapping cables behind your TV like it's 2015. Why? Because they're using an older MediaTek chipset to save on manufacturing costs. They're betting that you won't notice. And then there's the brightness. In my testing, the Bravia 82 hit about 14 or 40 nits in its most accurate cinema mode. That sounds like a lot, right? Well, when the Samsung S95F and the LG G5 are pushing past 2100 nits, the Sony starts to look a bit, well, dim. If you have a bright American living room with big windows, this TV is going to struggle all day long. You'll be fighting reflections all day long. But if you're a Batcave viewer, someone who watches movies in total darkness, the Sony's black levels and shadow detail are hauntingly good. It doesn't just crush the blacks to hide flaws. It shows you the texture and the shadows that other TVs just turn into a black blob. Sony's secret weapon is the sound. They use actuators to turn the entire screen into a speaker. It's weird, it's high-tech, and it actually works. When a character on the left side of the screen speaks, the sound actually comes from their mouth, not from a tiny speaker at the bottom. For most people, this means you might not even need a sound bar. That's a real value save of about $300 to $500 right there. Gaming-wise, it's perfect for PlayStation, which is Sony speak for we automated the HDR setting so you don't have to. It's great for the casual gamer, but if you're a competitive PC gamer looking for 144 Hz or 240 Hz, forget it. You're capped at 120 Hz. So is the Bravia 82 the only one to buy? Not for everyone. It's for the purist. It's for the person who cares more about the quality of the pixel than the quantity of the light. But before we move on to the LG C5, which is where the smart money usually goes, I want to hear from you. We're planning the next round of deep dive tests right now. What products are you actually looking at? Is it the new ultra short throw projectors? Is it the Budget King 75-in from TCL? Or are you waiting for the 2027 specs to leak? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one, and it's how we decide what hardware to tear apart next. Seriously, tell me what you want to see and we'll make it happen. Alright, let's keep moving, because if that Sony felt like an overpriced luxury, this next one is where the math starts to get a lot more interesting. The LG C5 is the TV that everyone expects to win every year. It's the default choice. But in 2026, LG has done something that's actually made me a bit angry. They've introduced Brightness Booster Max to the C series for the first time, which sounds great, right? It's finally as bright as the G series was 2 years ago. But they've also stripped out something critical. They've completely removed DTS audio support, not just from the speakers, but even the pass-through is gone. If you have a huge collection of Blu-rays or high-end files with DTS:X soundtracks, this TV will literally stay silent. You'd have to buy an expensive external receiver just to get sound. This is the stuff they don't tell you in the manual. They save a few cents on a licensing fee and pass the headache on to you. However, for the gamers, the C5 is a beast. Unlike the Sony, the LG gives you 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, every single one. And it supports 144 Hz VRR. If you're plugging in a high-end gaming PC, the LG is miles ahead. The input lag is sitting at around 9 milliseconds, which is virtually instantaneous. In 2026, if you're a gamer, it's almost impossible to justify the Sony over the LG, despite Sony's PlayStation branding. The irony is thick there, isn't it? But let's talk about the software bloat. LG's WebOS has become a digital billboard. Every time you turn the TV on, you're greeted with recommended shows you don't want to see and AI shopping features that are honestly just creepy. It's getting slower every year because the AI is constantly phoning home to sell your data. In my longevity tests, the LG chips are being pushed so hard by the background telemetry that the menus start to stutter after just a few months of use. It's the hidden cost of a value TV. So, we have the Sony, which is the artist's tool with a loyalty tax. We have the LG, which is the gaming king with a data privacy tax. But what if you don't want to pay either? What if you just want the brightest, most in-your-face picture for a bright room? That's where Samsung enters the chat, and things get, well, they get weird. If Sony is the artist and LG is the athlete, then the Samsung S95F is the bodybuilder. This is the 3rd generation refined QD OLED, and Samsung is currently winning the NIT wars in 2026. I measured this thing at over 3,000 nits in a 10% window. That is Retina searingly bright for an OLED. We used to say OLEDs weren't for bright rooms. Samsung just proved that theory dead. But here's where it gets weird. I know what you're thinking. 3,000 nits. I'm in. But hold on. Samsung is still refusing to support Dolby Vision in 2026. It's purely an ego-driven corporate grudge match at this point. They want their own format, HDR10+, to win. But the reality is that 90% of the high-end content on Netflix, Disney+, and Apple TV+ is mastered in Dolby Vision. When you play a Dolby Vision movie on this Samsung, the TV has to guess how to map those colors. It's called tone mapping, and Samsung's AI is a bit too aggressive. It likes to make things look punchy rather than accurate. If you're watching a gritty, dark drama like The Batman, the Samsung tries to turn it into a Pixar movie. It's vibrant, sure, but it's not what the cinematographer intended. This is the truth they don't want you to know. You're paying for the best hardware, but the software is actively fighting the content you're watching. And we need to talk about the thinness trap. Samsung is obsessed with making these TVs look like a sheet of glass. The S95F is incredibly thin, but where does the heat go? In my long-term stress tests, the S95F gets significantly hotter than the LG or the Sony. Heat is the #1 killer of OLED pixels. If you're someone who leaves the news on for 8 hours a day with static logos, the Samsung is the most likely to develop burn-in by 2028. It's a beauty over brains design philosophy. Now, if $2,000 feels like a scam, let's look at the value disruption happening in the $1,000 range. Enter the Hisense U8QG. This is an RGB mini LED. Unlike standard mini LEDs that use white lights with color filters, this uses dedicated red, green, and blue LEDs for the backlight. This tech is a game-changer for the price. The color volume on this $999 TV actually beats the $2,500 Sony in certain areas. It's the secret the premium brands are terrified of. Why pay double for a name brand when Hisense is giving you 5,000 nits and nearly 100% of the digital cinema color space? But, and you knew there was a but, here is the stuff they don't tell you in the manual about Hisense. Hisense's motion processing is, let's just say, unrefined. When you're watching fast-moving sports, you'll see smearing. The pixels can't keep up with the processing. It's like the TV is overthinking and tripping over its own feet. If you're a big NFL or NBA fan, this will drive you crazy within a week. I've had 3 units in the lab, and all 3 showed vertical banding during camera pans across a uniform color like a golf green or a clear blue sky. It's the panel lottery. With Hisense, you're not just buying a TV, you're buying a ticket, and you might get a dud. Also, despite having over 5,000 dimming zones, the U8QG still struggles with blooming. Because the LEDs are so bright, they bleed into the black bars at the top and bottom of your movies. It turns a letterbox movie into a dark gray box movie. If you're a nighttime viewer, this is the deal breaker you need to consider before trying to save that $1,000. Then we have TCL. The 2026 TCL QM8K is the heavy hitter. It's designed for the American suburban mega living room, the ones with 3 windows and a glass sliding door. TCL has stopped trying to be accurate and started trying to be explosive. In my testing, the QM8K's brightness was so intense, it actually triggered the thermal protection on my colorimeter. 5,200 nits. That's not a TV. That's a window into the sun. If you're watching a movie with a flashbang grenade, you are going to blink in real life. It is an incredibly immersive experience for HDR gaming and action movies. But TCL has a software nightmare problem. Their 2026 operating system, a customized version of Google TV, is incredibly buggy. During my 2 weeks of testing, I had to hard reset the TV 4 times because the sound just stopped working, or the HDMI CEC would forget that my soundbar existed. These are the quirks that reviewers who only spend 2 hours with the TV never mention. It feels like the hardware team built a Ferrari, but the software team gave it the steering wheel of a golf cart. And here's a truth bomb that applies to both Hisense and TCL. The data harvesting is extreme. These TVs are subsidized by the data they collect. They are tracking every app you open, how long you watch a specific show, and even using ACR or automatic content recognition to see what you're playing from your Blu-ray player. In 2026, these budget premium TVs are essentially Trojan horses for advertising companies. Look, I'll be honest with you, the math of the TV market has changed. It's no longer about LED versus OLED. It's about light control versus raw power. If you buy a TCL QM8K in a dark bedroom, you're going to hate it because it'll sear your eyeballs. If you buy a Sony OLED in a sun-drenched sunroom, you're going to hate it because you'll be looking at a reflection of your own face all day. I know what you're thinking, NextGen picks. Just tell me which one doesn't suck. We're getting to the final verdict where I'll name the only one you should actually put your hard-earned money toward. But before we get there, we need to talk about the longevity metric, because a TV that looks great on day 1 is worthless if it's a brick on day 700. The most common failure I'm seeing in 2026 models is the power supply. These TVs are drawing so much power to hit these crazy brightness numbers, sometimes up to 400 or 500 watts, that the internal components are literally cooking themselves. The cost of ownership isn't just the price tag, it's the electricity bill and the repair versus replace math you'll have to do in 3 years. One more thing they don't tell you, ear compatibility. In 2026, you'd think this was solved. Nope. The Samsung S95F has a weird handshake issue with non-Samsung soundbars, where the audio will cut out for half a second every hour. It's just enough to be annoying, but not enough for a warranty repair. It's these micro frustrations that define your experience over 5 years. So we've looked at the elite, the gamer, the powerhouse, and the disruptors. And the field is crowded, but the only smart path is actually much narrower than the brands want you to believe. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry. The math is about to get very simple. All right, we've waded through the marketing sludge. We've looked at the brightness specs that turn out to be lies, the software that's designed to track your every move, and the hardware that's built to fail the moment your credit card's extended warranty runs out. Now, it's time to answer the question you came here for. If you were standing in a store in 2026 or staring at an Amazon Buy Now button, which 65-inch TV is actually worth the thousands of dollars you worked hard to earn? To get there, we have to group these by who are you? Because the only TV you should buy depends entirely on how you live your life. If you live in a typical modern American home, lots of glass, open floor plan, sun hitting the screen at 3 p.m., you have to ignore the OLED hype. I don't care what the salesperson says about infinite contrast. If you can't see that contrast because of the glare from your windows, it's worthless for you. The only choice is the Samsung S95F if you want to stay in the premium tier, or the TCL QM8K if you want to keep an extra $1,000 in your pocket. The Samsung S95F is the only OLED I've tested that can actually stand up to a sun-drenched Saturday afternoon of college football. Its anti-reflective coating is a scientific miracle. It doesn't just block reflections, it absorbs them. It turns a window reflection into a faint purple smudge that disappears the moment the screen turns on. But remember the truth bomb from earlier? You're losing Dolby Vision. If you can live with that, it's the king of the bright room. But what if you're a gamer? What if your TV is basically a giant monitor for your PS6 or your RTX 5090? This is where the math becomes undeniably clear. The LG C5 OLED is the only 65-inch TV in 2026 that gives you the complete package for gamers. 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, all of them full 48 Gbps bandwidth, 144 Hz native refresh rate, G-Sync, Frank Premium, and an input lag so low it's literally faster than the human nervous system. Sony will try to tell you the Bravia 82 is perfect for PlayStation, but that's just a label. The LG C5 actually performs better. It doesn't skip frames, it doesn't struggle with VRR flicker like the budget brands, and it has the most mature gaming software in the industry. And let's talk about the best overall award. If I had to buy one TV today with my own money, one that has to last 5 to 7 years, handle movies, sports, and games, and not drive me crazy with bugs, it's the LG C5. It's the smart buyer's choice. Why? Because LG has finally solved the OLED dimness problem without making the TV $4,000. It's bright enough for 90% of rooms. It has the best color accuracy out of the box. And despite the DTS audio issue I mentioned earlier, it's the most stable platform on the market. It is the only one that feels like a finished product rather than a beta test. But NextGen picks, I hear you saying, what about that Hisense? It's $900, that's a steal. Look, I get it. Saving $600 is a lot of money. The Hisense U8QG is my pick for best value, but it comes with a massive warning. If you buy the Hisense, you must buy it from a retailer with a bulletproof return policy like Costco or Amazon. You are playing the panel lottery. If you get a good one, it's 90% of the performance of the Sony for 40% of the price. But if you get a bad one, you'll be staring at dirty screen effect and ghosting for the next 5 years. For $900, it's a gamble. For $1,500, the LG C5 is a guarantee. Here is a truth bomb that applies to every single TV I've mentioned. In 2026, the internal power supplies are the weak link. These TVs are so thin and they run so hot that the capacitors are under constant stress. My recommendation, if you're spending more than $1,200, buy a high-quality, non-sacrificial surge protector, not the $10 power strip from the grocery store. I'm talking about a real power conditioner. It's the cheapest longevity insurance you can buy. So, here is the hierarchy. If you want the absolute best movie experience and you don't care about the price, buy the Sony Bravia 8 Max 2. If you want the best gaming TV and the best all-around value, buy the LG C5. If you want to save every penny and you're willing to risk the panel lottery, buy the Hisense U8QG. Look, I'll be honest with you, 2026 is a weird year for tech. We're seeing a lot of feature creep where brands are adding AI cameras and fitness apps instead of actually making the picture better. They want you to treat your TV like a smartphone, something you replace every 2 years. Don't fall for it. Buy the hardware that has the best fundamentals, great contrast, accurate color, and enough ports to handle the next generation of consoles. I've put links to the exact models I vetted and the specific retailers that won't screw you on the warranty in the description below. Those are the safe paths. If you use them, it helps us keep this channel independent, so we never have to take a dime from Samsung, LG, or Sony. It's how we keep the truth bombs coming. One last thing, if you're still confused or if your specific living room setup doesn't fit into these boxes, ask me in the comments. I'm down there every day helping you guys pick the right gear. Don't let a salesperson talk you into a deal that's actually just old stock they're trying to clear out. This is NextGen Picks. Thanks for trusting us with your time and your money.